Welcome back. This is part 2 of doing the valve stem seals in this 2002 Corolla with a 1ZZ-FE engine. In the last video, we scoped the engine to make sure that we thought it was worth doing the valve stem seals, and I think it is. So we're just picking up where we left off. So here we go. So the book recommends that you remove the washer reservoir, the power steering pump, and just a whole bunch of stuff, and the timing cover and timing chain in order to do the valve stem seals. We are not going to do that. We are going to attempt to do this without removing any of that stuff. I don't know if we can, but it's going to be a long drawn out process if we can't do it that way. So let's start by removing the valve cover. I'm going to time lapse this so you won't be able to hear me talking you through it, but basically I'm just going to remove all the nuts and bolts holding the valve cover on and pull that off. Let's see if we can get it off. There she is. Now I thought, see this colored link right here? I thought there was supposed to be a colored link at the marks. So there should be a link lining up with this top dead center mark here. And I think this is the top dead center mark here, and this link, if it's supposed to be one of the colored links, is off a tooth. Let's turn the crank around and see where those links are, if there are links. I almost wonder if that link is the one that's supposed to be down at the crankshaft. Now I'm going to put a wrench with a 19mm socket down on the crankshaft pulley so that I can turn the crankshaft. Oh, here comes the other link. So somebody had this timing chain off and they put it back wrong, which is going to screw up us doing this the easy way. Is that it? And what do we look like? All right. That line is up and that little mark is up, but we have no colors. I'm gonna have to mark the chain and the sprocket so we know where they should be. So there's a little arrow. Now can we mark this chain? Let's do this a little better. And put a little paint on a Q-tip. Hopefully we'll be able to see that. We'll just enjoy some nature while this dries. Look at that rosemary. Rosemary's in full bloom. What else we got going on over there? A robin looking for some bugs or worms. Something in the neighbor's yard. There's a cardinal. Oh, there's a bluebird. Is it right? There's a bluebird. A pair of them going in and out of the neighbor's bluebird house. Get this thing in focus. All right, I think that's probably good. Now we need to take off the timing chain tensioner, which is right there. That nut and that nut. Let's try this one. There we go. The camshaft cap loosening sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we'll loosen the exhaust sprocket if we can. Might need to go get a cheater. And we use a 24mm wrench to keep it from turning. Let's try it like this. Hopefully I'm doing this right. That works. Cool. Now let's see if we can turn this back a little to give the chain some slack. To go like this. Yeah, there we go. Let's bring this way. Can we get this sprocket off? Give it a couple of taps. Come on. See it moving. Let's wiggle each side. There we go. There we go. Now we can start loosening up all the cam cap bolts. These three right here are 12mm. And the rest are 10mm. This one will be next. Then these. All right, we need to keep track of which of all these caps go where, because it's really important that the same cap goes in the same place on the same cam. So I wonder if I can scratch on here anything like E1 for exhaust 1. I'm also going to put these in order on a piece of cardboard, but just in case somebody kicks the cardboard or knocks something some which way, probably be easier to do X. I know exhaust starts with E, but we'll do these I. Yeah, you can kind of see it. All right, let's see if we can get this up. Now, don't want to scratch the top of this head, because then it won't seal right. That's actually part of the reason I've left all the gasket on. Usually the gasket sticks inside the valve cover, but it's stuck to the head itself. There it goes. And it'll help me keep from scratching stuff. So there is the big one. And let's be safe and write firewall. Make sure my hands are good and clean. I'm getting grit in here. These are all loose. Get up and out. Very carefully lower that. Oh no. Forgot those can sling around there. Get this in here quick. I'm gonna move this to a safer place. That was cake. Now for the trickier one. So I'm gonna use this bungee cord to hopefully hold this up. Let's go this way. And I'm just gonna hook it to the hood here. I'll show you in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and take these caps off and set them in order in the box. Now, I'm going to take this cam and sprocket all out together. Again, make sure my hands are totally clean, no grit on them. And pull it up. And out. There we go. Perfect. Now another box for the valve buckets. I'm going to use a clean magnet to get those out. Let's actually go ahead and label this box before I take those out. X2, 8. And 1. And there you have it. Now let's see which ones are at bottom. That's at the top, so this should be at the bottom. So we're going to use the rope trick. So I'm going to feed rope down into here, and then I'm going to raise the piston up until it pushes the rope against the top of the cylinder chamber. It'll keep the valves closed. I have used compressed air in the past, and a lot of people use compressed air, but I think the rope trick actually works better. I think I even one time used spark plug wire. I coiled up a spark plug wire inside of them. I gotta go see if I have some rope. I used to have some nice soft white nylon rope that I used for this. It seems to have walked off, so I found this in the basement. I'm just gonna very carefully feed it down the spark plug tube. Hopefully it's not too thick. And as I push it in, I'm going to twist it at the same time. So hopefully it will coil inside there. There's kind of a trick to not twisting it too fast so that it doesn't coil up inside the spark plug tube. Most of the time you have to use a long screwdriver and kind of help feed it down in there. Smaller rope might work a little bit better, but I think this will work. It really doesn't take a lot of rope because these engines have very little clearance when they're at top dead center. So just something in there to press against the valves. Trying to be careful not to damage the spark plug threads. All right. Now we're gonna turn the crank until we feel it jam. So I'm getting on there. Now I'll turn it. And when it gets to, look at that chain turning through there. It's working just like it should. When it gets to the top, now I can't turn it anymore. It's really stiff. So it must be pushing on the valves there. Don't push too hard, but just a good firm push. Now that piston is pressing up against the rope, which is pressing up against the valves and keeping them closed, and therefore keeping them from falling down into the cylinders when I remove the keepers and springs and all. It's super important not to let your valves drop down into the cylinders. Now this next part is the highly experimental part that I hope is going to work. So I saw this guy, Bereska, I think his name is, do it on his YouTube channel, and he took a magnet, not like this one, it was more of a individual magnet about that long. So I'm gonna have to pull this off. And let's just hope it works. Oh, come on. There we go. So that's what I want right there. I hope. So we're going to take this and stick it right on top, right over the valve stem. And here I've got a 16mm deep well socket on a wrench. I'm just going to put that over it and I'm going to carefully press down. This is not as easy as he made it look. Oh, and it worked. So there is the spring retainer. Here is the spring. And the valve keepers are stuck to the magnet inside there. Now we can pull this valve stem seal off and put a new one on there and try to get this back in place with another trick. Now to pull the valve seals out, I actually bought these. These go around the valve stem seal. You can see it has like little teeth to grip it, and you just grab it and pull it out. Now we'll see if we can see this work. Just gonna squeeze a little bit, pull up, and that slipped off. Doesn't seem to be working. Be careful not to scratch up anything in here. All right, we'll try some needle nose. All right, here we are with some needle nose pliers. I wonder if I can put a pick under it. So I got this set of picks here. I'm gonna try this one right here. All right, let's see if I can get under it. Pull up. Definitely under it. And I just pulled the handle off. But let's just try this for now. I'm just gonna grab it with my pliers. Hopefully tight enough. And pull it. How could this thing be on so tight? Oh, there it comes. Finally. All right, now let's see if we can get the new one back on there. Here are the valve stem seals. This green one says in, and the brown one says X. I'm just gonna put a little oil on it. And an oil squirter, that'd probably work a lot better, but over valve stem, like so. Then I'm gonna take a 10mm deep well, just gonna press down on it. Make sure the spring didn't pop off. Get a good look down in there. Now, the trickiest part of all, getting the spring and everything back in. The spring back on there. I'm just gonna go ahead and insert the keepers the way they go. Obviously the narrow part goes toward the bottom. Just gonna make sure that is seated in there nicely. Now grab the other one, put it in the other side. They're both in there. Now I'm gonna carefully put that on top of the spring. Like that. Now, you apparently take your old valve stem seal and stick it right on top of there. Then I'm gonna take an old nitrile glove that had a hole in it. Go ahead and tear it up. Get me a piece of nitrile. I'm not sure if maybe a balloon would work. And I'm gonna take my 16mm socket, my rubber. Gonna try to center that. Press it down. And somehow, miraculously, it works. You can see it's in place. So now I can actually put my bucket back over this one so that I know it's done. Now let's try the next one. The magnet right over the valve stem, my 16-inch deep well socket over it all. Give it a little press. And there it comes. There's the spring. Put them in a box so I don't lose them. Try to get the valve stem seal out. Valve stem seal removal tool. There it comes. I think I was grabbing too far down. There it is. All right, get another intake valve seal out of here. Which, in these Victor Reinz, it's the greeny blue ones. Aqua, teal. Put a little oil on it. Put it over the valve stem. Carefully not to knock that little spring off. Now we switch to a 10mm deep well and push that down. That's firm. Make sure the spring didn't pop off. Looks okay. The spring back on. Take the magnet and keepers apart and get the keepers out of there. I'm going to do this over a box so I don't lose them. Put the keepers narrow part down inside the retainer. I will carefully set that on top of the spring. And we'll put our old seal on top of it, exactly over that hole. Then switch to our 16mm deep well. And don't forget the rubber. Put the rubber on there. Just putting the rubber over this. I think he put the rubber over the valve stem seal itself. I don't know that it matters, it just worked for us the other way, so I'm just going to put it over this. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to push down on it. I don't think that took. Did not. Nope. Try this again. Get lined up. Get our old seal on top of it. I think maybe it was because I tried to do it left-handed. Put this over it. I don't feel like I'm centered. Nope. But it's still lined up. What's going wrong? I wonder if you even need the valve stem seal. Let's try it without it this time. Let's just put that straight on there. Well, look at there. It worked without the valve stem seal on it. All right, intake number 2. All right, well, it's another gorgeous day out here. It's about 70 degrees, and we're gonna have our head under the hood of the car. So we got the 2 intake valves on cylinder number 2 done. Now let's try the exhaust valves. These are probably going to be a little bit trickier because, for one thing, they're deeper under the hood, and since the engine is pitched back this way and those valves also face that way, it's going to be harder to press down evenly to, you know, get the springs apart and put them back together. All right, here we go. Let's do this one first. Magnet on the valve stem. Whoa! It does not want to go on the valve stem. Let's see if I can do this from over here. One-handed. There we go. Got the spring, got the keepers, and the retainer. Now, let's see if we can get the valve stem seal out. All right, I'm gonna try something a little different this time. I'm gonna grab the seal and I'm gonna try to grab it a little high. Give it a wiggle. And look at that. I just grabbed it a little high. See where I grabbed it? I almost missed it. And I wiggled it and it popped right off. That one's nice and tight. Put the next valve stem seal on. Okay, this is one of the brown ones that says EX on it for exhaust. Put that on there carefully. Get my 10mm deep well socket, press it on there. I think that's good. Valve spring. Keepers are in the retainer. Put that on. Go back to my 16mm socket and get out my plastic. Should I put this on top of it or not? Let's try it first again without the spare seal on it. Hopefully there's not a really good reason why you need the spare seal. Hopefully it's not that the keepers are going to come shooting out and we lose them. But that might be exactly what it's for. Put that over the spring. Did we get anywhere? Nope. And there's a keeper sticking out. So let's drop the magnet back on it. See what all we got. Okay, we got all keepers, so we're good. Get them back in the retainer. Put the retainer with the keepers back in place. The valve stem seal over it. The rubber over that. Now I'm wondering, do I need the rubber? Feel like it hooked up, and it didn't. This might be more difficult than we thought. Try this again. I think the rubber is to keep the seal from jumping off. No, something didn't work right again. Feel it. Okay, I have come to an impasse. I just cannot get the keepers to stay in there when I'm doing the exhaust valve. I've tried different size sockets. I used everything from a 13 deep well socket, I think, up to a 16. I've tried using the rubber without the seal, using the rubber with the seal, and nothing seems to be working. If each one takes this long, which I've been working on this for probably 15 minutes, there's no way this is going to work out. So I ordered this tool from online after I ran into the problem. Oh, it came from Toyotool. Valve Master. Made in the USA. That is nicely machined. And I think you pull this out. Yep. One side pulls out the keepers or the retainers, and the other side puts them back in. Now, that is a serious tool though. Now I see why it was 90 bucks. I mean, that is several machined parts fitting together in there. And that is nice. That is really nice. And that is a piece of solid aluminum right there. Can't see that. So this little piece retracts separately from then the whole thing, which retracts. That is really cool. And I guess this side is the side that gets them off. So that's probably magnetic in there. How do we test that? Rusty little bolt here. Oh yeah, so that's magnetic, okay. So this is the side you take it out with. You put that on there. Man, that fits snug. And you would push down on your valve, and the retainer would go down, and when the retainer goes down, it releases the keepers, and the keepers jump up to that magnet, and then when you pull it away, you've got the retainer and the keepers and the spring all separated. And to put it back, flip that around, this machine's so tight, it's like an air shock. And slowly push it in there until all the air bleeds out. That is so cool. Anyway, and so then when you push it back in, this pushes the spring down on the outside, and once the spring goes down, that little protuberance spreads the keepers out in the way they need to go, I guess, so that they can drop down into place. Well, let's see how it works. And we're going to put our retainer back on top of the spring, and then this supposedly will pop them right into place with no problems whatsoever. So we'll see how this goes. Try to go on as straight as possible. Oh. And that worked. Wow. All right, so wow. But now let's take out the one next to it after I put the bucket back on that one. I have this side of the tool ready. I'm going to press down on the top of this. And one little press is all it takes. And I have the retainer and the keepers and the spring just like that. Okay, now I think I've got the valve stem seal pulling figured out. Grab it at the top. Give it a little wiggle. Oh yeah, that's it. Got it just about halfway up there. Now something I also didn't mention about this tool is this side doubles as a seal installer. So let's oil up another valve stem seal and try it out. I'm gonna drop that seal right in there. And you can hear the magnet grab it. Make sure it's square. So the valve stem seal is loaded. And then we're gonna slide it over the valve stem. And give it a little push. One thing I saw said give it a little tap, but I'm just gonna, that feels snug and it looks okay. Turn the tool around, back to that side, put the spring and the retainer with the keepers installed back in place. Take our tool with this end, of course, put it over everything, try to get it straight up and down, gently push. And there it is. Let's put the bucket over that and move on to another cylinder. We'll go through this kind of slow like this one more time, and I'm actually going to change ropes. I hate working with this rope. It's a little too thick. I found some other white rope. It's still a little too thick, but it's going to be much better than this stuff. Okay, since this cylinder's all the way up right now, or almost all the way up, then this cylinder should be almost all the way down. So we'll go to this one. Feed that straight in there. Obviously you want to try to keep this rope pretty clean. You don't want anything gritty on it. I do have the fitting to do compressed air, and I do have a compressor, but I really do like this better because, you know, I can leave this in place for a while and not worry about it. Whereas with the compressor, once you get your cylinder full of air and you're ready to go, you know, you got to keep the compressor on and you got to do what you got to do. You can't walk away and come back tomorrow unless you're just going to leave it running. Hope there's not a power outage. All right, that should be plenty of rope. We'll switch the direction of our ratchet down here and turn our crank. At the same time, we can pull this rope out now that we've released that tension. Just hope we can. There it is. As we keep on cranking this opposite direction, soon it'll be too hard to press, and now I can't pull anymore, so I know this piston is at top dead center and it won't go any further, so that means it is pressing up against the rope, which is pressing up against the valves. So we're ready to start doing these valves. We'll start with this exhaust one that you can see most clearly right here. Turn the tool around to the removal side and give it a press. There it goes. And got the keepers in there. Take the old stem off. There it goes. Put the new one back on. Looks like the one next to it. Put our keepers back in our retainer. There we go. Back on our spring. Spring in place, keepers in place. Turn the tool to the installation side. Line it up. Press. Oh, this one is not seating. Try this again. Not quite. Let me show you what it looks like. So you can see that one keeper right there is not totally seated. So I'm just going to hit it again. I'm not going to take it all apart. And that didn't work. There we go. Apparently just wasn't pushing it deep enough, so I had to get over here on this other side and brace myself against the hood. Now I'm going to speed this up as I go to the intake side. Woohoo! Got them all done. Take the dowel out. All right, so what's next? Everything in reverse. Got to put the cams back in and get the chain lined up right. So here we go. First thing I'm gonna do is get the crank back at top dead center. Yeah, that's it. Now we'll put the intake cam back in. First I'm gonna pour a little fresh oil on the bearings. That wasn't good. I just poured it in that screw hole. Don't pour it in your screw holes and bolt holes. Clean off this section right here. Clean around those locating dowels. Making sure there's no grit in there. I'm going to try to draw the oil out of this with this Q-tip. Okay. I'm very carefully going to try to get this cam in here. Let me take this bungee cord down. Awesome! Exclamation point. Thank you so much! Exclamation point. Okay, to prep for this job, I watched a few videos, and one was by this MR2 Spider Chronicles guy, and he did all this without removing his chain, and he didn't even keep tension on the chain or, you know, pull the chain up. While he actually wasn't doing the valve stem seals, but he was just changing his cams, but he didn't even keep tension on it. And he says that it's impossible for the chain to slip on the crankshaft sprocket because the oil pump housing is built all around the sprocket, so the chain has no room to back away from the sprocket. and skip a tooth, so it's very safe. You only need to worry about the camshaft. Now, there's the white dot for the cam, right? For the intake, I should say. So let's line that up. There we go. That's it. Now, I'll set that down. I'm gonna make sure this cam doesn't have any grit on it, and it's got oil coated all over it. This is the exhaust cam. Oh, there's a little bit of hair on it. I'll make sure that we got oil on these. All right, there we go. Put that in there. So I'm not really sure if this little dot goes up or down, but when I get the sprocket out, we'll figure that out. Okay, so that pin obviously goes up. See if we can get this lined up. With the dot, but can we get that on at the same time? Because you gotta get the center and that lined up at the same time. There it is. Makes it seem like those sprockets are too tight. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Now let's go ahead and put the bolt back in the exhaust cam, just so the sprocket doesn't jump off. Now obviously I can't tighten this down yet, so I have to remember I haven't tightened it. Alright, let's go ahead and start putting the bearing caps on. I've just coated all these caps with fresh oil. I'll start from this end. Just gonna kind of finger tighten these. Probably be easier if I just used a 10mm socket on an extension and just ran them in. All right, and the big cap. Make sure everything looks like there's nothing going to keep it from seating fully. I think we're okay. This is catching on this cam over here because it's slightly tilted. There, it's catching on the side of that because this is still lifted up over here, so the whole thing's kind of this way. So that must be precisely machined to fit only when this is perfectly flat. All right, so let's start tightening. I'm going to start tightening them with this little 1/4 inch with a 10mm on it. And I'm not really going to tighten them. I'm just going to basically get them to where they're touching. And this is number 9. Let's see if it'll fit now. There it goes. So these are 12mm. All right, I'll just make sure everything has just a little tension on it. All right, now it's time to break out the torque wrench. These get 108 inch-pounds, which is 9 foot-pounds. Loosen that. Go 1 notch from the 10. Tighten that back up. And we'll put a 10mm on this and start tightening. So this is number 1 here. It's always a little scary to me, tightening these things up in aluminum. There it goes. Can't really hear it, but I can feel it. Here's number 2. There it is, nice and slow. There it is. Number 6. Gave it a different click. Maybe I'm using this wrong. I just bought this to do this because I didn't have one that was small enough. So we'll go back over these. That's right. That's right. Heat. All right, switch over to the 12 millimeter for these. These 12 millimeters here get 17 foot-pounds. And should we start in the middle or start on the sides? Let's start in the middle. There's that one. There's that one. Here's that one. I'll just double check them. Boom. 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 All right. Now I'm going to put a new O-ring on the timing chain tensioner right there and oil it good. Now we're going to reset it by opening this little hook here. You have to hold this. There it goes. Until it goes far enough that you can catch it. There it goes. There we go. And it's hooked. Now the holes are kind of offset, so it should only fit one way. Oh wait, before I forget, I need to tighten the exhaust cam sprocket. You can't actually get a socket in there, so I have these little spanner things that work with your driver. I'm just going to put that on there, and then I'm going to hold this still with my 24 millimeter. There we go. Now it's kind of hard for me to see which way this goes, so I'm going to try it one way, and if that doesn't work, we'll try it the other way. Ah, there we go. That was the right way. So just slide that on there. And it's not going all the way because of the O-ring, but that's okay. It will slip on when we tighten it. Nuts on there. I just snugged those nuts up with this 10 millimeter socket. Now to release that tensioner spring, we need to turn the crank clockwise. Probably hear it click. It's definitely not tight yet. Oh, I heard a click. Guess it looks like we're tight now. Okie doke. Okay, now for the valve cover gasket. Let's get this nasty thing off of here. I'll spray some carb cleaner on a clean rag and carefully clean all the surfaces, making sure not to wipe any grit into the head here. Keep rotating if I need to, if it gets dirty. And I don't want paper towel stuck in there either. That is about good for that. Now it's time to clean valve cover. Same thing, clean paper towel. This time though, we'll use a screwdriver to get it in that groove. All right, genuine Toyota. Hopefully this is held in with friction and it won't fall out when I go to set it on. I have the most trouble setting valve cover gaskets on and them to stay like you want them. Hey, those feel snug. Go over everything twice. Oh, good. That was a little loose there. A little loose. And that. And that. I'm just going to take another clean paper towel and just run it along here. Even pressure just to make sure everything's seated and clean. All right, so I think we're supposed to put a little RTV sealant right here and right here where the timing cover meets the main part of the head. So I'm gonna go get my Toyota FIPG, whatever it's called, Foreman place gasket. And we'll just put just a tiny little drop right there and right there. So a little dab here and here. And while it's wet, let's get this on here. So I'm going to put my fingers in the spark plug wells here so I don't touch anything. Then I can hold this stuff out of the way. It's there, it's there. All right, I just need to put all the nuts and bolts back on. I think these go in the middle. These that have the gaskets on them. Probably goes here, here, here. Don't lie. Over there, not here. There. Goes over here. Start these in the middle. I think this does like an indiscriminate 45 pounds or something, so I'm gonna gently snug these with the 1/4 inch ratchet. Start in the middle. All right, put this hose back on. All right, I am going to put the new spark plugs in it, just because. I know a lot of people want to see the new spark plugs in it, so I'm just going to bite the bullet. Here they are, my genuine Toyota spark plugs, pre-gapped. Nice little plastic over the end, Denso. I'm just going to run them in, finger tight. Wish I had some anti-seize. Now we're just going to have to go with it. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be taking them out a lot to look, see what it's doing, oil burning, testing new chemicals. Also, while I'm at it, while I'm tightening these, I don't know if y'all noticed the original video I did where I scoped them compared to the most recent one, like the last video where I scoped them. There was a big difference in carbon on the top of the pistons. And the pistons obviously looked a lot oilier this time. And I'm thinking, did the oil dissolve all that carbon? Because if it did, I know a lot of people have been saying, you know, you can't get the carbon out of the varnish, the gunk, whatever, out of the piston rings. Well, I mean, if it's the oil, you know, I'm running synthetic, and I know some of y'all think, you know, I'm running cheap synthetic, and it is inexpensive, but obviously it's not the best synthetic, but it is synthetic, and I think it's pretty good. And it looks like the oil that's dripping on the pistons is dissolving the carbon. So if it can dissolve it off the top of the pistons, is it dissolving it off the rings as well? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what these look like after running this a little while with the new valve stem seals, to see if the pistons still look oily, see if it burns off all that carbon, and then we can compare the initial scoping to the last scoping and maybe to a future scoping. Let me check the torque on these. I don't remember what it's supposed to be. It's apparently supposed to be 156 inch-pounds. Hey Siri, convert 156 inch-pounds to foot-pounds.
156 pound-force inches is equivalent to 13 foot-pounds force.
Okie doke, 13. Let's see, there's 10. Right there, 1, 2, 3. All right. Now we'll drop the coils back in. Oh, let's wipe these off. All right. And 4. Rail back up here. There we go. Nuts on you guys. This hose back on the PCV valve. And I remember one more connector back here I unplugged. There we go. Check the oil really quick, a 1/4 inch below full. I'm not going to add any right now. Sure we didn't leave any tools under there. And that is it for the valve stem oil seal video. So, was that the problem? We'll find out in the next video. We're going to change the oil in this, drive as many miles as we can, and see how many quarts of oil we're using, if any. Let me know in the comments if you think it's the valve stem seals or if you still think it's the piston rings and the oil drain back holes in the pistons. And if you found this video helpful or enjoyed it in some way, please consider hitting the like button. And as always, thanks for watching, and we hope to see y'all in the next one. Well, I guess we should actually crank it to make sure we got the timing and everything right. This makes me a little nervous. Woo, that was close. Look at all that smoke. Woo.